The changes that we made to how to access the store broke the tests. Let's run them. We'll press A to run all the tests. And we have one failing test, which is the article list render. You'll see in the output here that we're now getting warnings about the prop types. Remember that we added prop types validation. So this is actually just a warning, but the actual error is that the lookup author method is no longer defined inside the article component. And the reason is, previously, we passed the store down to the article component from the article list component, and now we are reading the store globally. So this part here is no longer valid. And to get this test to work, since I'm not testing an app component here, I have to fake this now global context object to make the article component render correctly. So that powerful context API that we just used is making testing of component much harder because now we have a global dependency. And this is happening because the renderer here is a tree renderer. It renders the full tree. So when I say render the article list, it will start from the article list component and render that, and then it will actually render every child component inside that article list component. Now we can do a few things here. We can either adopt an integration testing approach, which means pass actual data to the component and try to fake the context of the store. This is probably a good strategy to test the top level components. But for components below that, I think a unit testing strategy is much better. So let me tell you what that means. With a unit testing mentality, the point of this test here is to test the article list component, not the article component. And React has a concept to do that. Instead of tree rendering, we can use shallow rendering. Shallow rendering will only render the article list component. And then for every article inside the article list component, it will just have a stub that in here there will be an article. Now the React test renderer actually supports shallow rendering, but there is a much better library to work with shallow rendering. It's called Enzyme from Airbnb. This tool actually enriches the React built-in testing utilities with much better syntax. For example, it adopts a syntax similar to jQuery for finding elements in the DOM, which is really cool. But we're going to use it here for its shallow rendering capabilities. So this is going to be a dependency. We need to yarn add --dev enzyme. And instead of the React test renderer, we're going to import the shallow function from enzyme. Okay, so the article list component still expects an articles object like that. There is no longer a store, so I can remove this from the test probs. And instead of rendering a tree, we're going to render what's commonly named as wrapper. So instead of renderer.create, we can just call this shallow function. We don't need to convert things to JSON. So I'm going to comment out this part and take a look at what this wrapper look like. It's a shallow wrapper object. So for example, we can do something like wrapper.node.props.children. Take a look at that. And you see that this is the array of the rendered articles. So the syntax is a little bit different now. So instead of the previous tree.children, now we can do something like wrapper.node.props.children.length. Let's actually make sure that this is going to pass. And it looks like it is passing. So I'm going to remove this console log, and I can actually just expect the wrapper itself to match the snapshot. Enzyme support that. However, our snapshot is actually different now. So previously we were rendering actual articles, and now with the shallow wrapper, we are not rendering the articles. So you'll see inside the shallow render output that this is where we're going to render an article, but we're not really actually rendering an article. So this is perfect. I can update the snapshot now, and it's going to pass. And if you take a look at the snapshot now, you'll see how it is not rendering every article and just putting an article component to be rendered here. However, I still see the prop type validation firing, which actually surprises me. I wouldn't expect Enzyme to invoke the prop type validation because it's only shallow rendering the article list component, not the article. So there might be a bug here somewhere that's causing Enzyme to invoke the prop types of an article, and it shouldn't. But if I want to work around it, I can simply import the article component here. So import article from up one level article. And I can fake the prop types of the article component. So article.proptypes equal an empty object. That should remove the warning. So let's keep this syntax for now. So Enzyme really has a lot of features. For example, instead of wrapper.node.props.children, I can, for example, do something like wrapper.find article. And that should also be 2. So this find syntax really is a convenient way of locating elements rendered within a component instead of depending on the shape of the tree, which is really cool.